Whoa. How did I do this before? I just didn't know which spot. Oh, God. Okay. Okay. We're live. We are live. We're live. Oh, I'm gonna do the thing. Oh my God. Why? All right. Hello, beautiful souls. I am having a super fun time already with these gorgeous people. I have with me Alex from Wonder Weirdness and Witchcraft and the lovely Owlvine Green. And we are going to be talking about practical magic, hands-on witchery, low magic, all the delicious stuff that witchy people like me and you and hopefully all of you like to talk about. So let's jump in with a little brief introduction. So I will let our beautiful guests describe themselves, a little bit about their practice and how they infuse practical witchery and practical magic into their lives. So, Alex, would you like to go first in alphabetical order?
Well, you guys, my name's Alex. I'm from Wonder Weirdness Witchcraft. And if you're familiar with my channel, you'll see that particularly this year, I think I've created a little bit of a movement. That's definitely been my goal this year, is to become the laziest witch I can be, in the sense that, you know, I don't need to use all the shit that's around me, you know? You don't need to use all of this stuff all the time. It's great sometimes, absolutely. Becoming a lazier and lazier witch as the days go by. So basically I work with archangels, I work with crystals and herbs and singing bowls and lots of fun stuff as well. So I'm super excited, Miss Avalon and Miss Owlvine today.
Exciting. I love the lazy witch. I love the concept of lazy witch, because I think we all go through our seasons, and our seasons sometimes really affect our personal practices, and sometimes less is more. And when you go through your lazy witch phase, I think simplicity then becomes key. It's very appealing, and it's this minimalistic chic. I don't call it lazy, I call it minimalistic chic witch.
I'm down for that as well.
Feel free to borrow it. All right, Owlvine, you're next.
My turn. Well, I'm Owlvine, and I have purple hair, and I have been practicing for almost 3 years now, so I'm pretty new to this gig still. I'm quite earth-based in my spirituality and therefore magic. For me, they're quite tied together. They're not for everyone and they don't have to be, but they are for me. I like to get in the dirt. I literally do that as a spiritual practice every day. I rub dirt on myself and get connected with the earth. I'm a mum, so there are times when doing a ritual, a big thing, actually there's most of the time, to be honest, I'm like, oh, you know what, like, by the end of everything being done, like, I cannot be bothered. So I do things pretty simply. I like to keep it simple. I have pretty spaces set up that I like to sit in, but what I actually do is quite simple. And I can't remember what else I was going to say. I had like this thing in mind. It was going to be amazing, of course. And that's about me for now, I think.
That's exciting. I love the introduction. I'm Owlvine and I have purple hair.
It's like we're at an AA meeting. Hi,
Yeah.
my name's Alex, and I'm a witch.
And I'm a lazy witch.
Yeah.
I'm a Tajay witch. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I love it, guys. Well, let's have a look to see if we've got any questions. I'm going to try and be very diligent with the message stream. So let's say hello to all of our lovely people. If you get the opportunity, guys, just type out a few hellos. I see that you're doing that anyway. So Soren's here. Some of our, Ben's here. Susan's here. Who else is here? Jessie. Hi, Jess. Hi, Amy. Hi, Molly. Hi, Bria. I don't think I can say hello to everyone, but you know that I'm loving you from over here. So we've got a few questions. I've got it written down in a very elegant journal that I shan't be divulging on camera. And so I'm just going to be peeking at that one. I'm just going to be peeking at that one from time to time to make sure we're on topic. Now, if you have any questions, please put them in caps, in bold writing, so that we can pick it out from your usual conversations amongst yourself, just so that it stands out in the chat stream a little easier for us. And at any time, if you have any questions for anyone, for either Alex or Owlvine, just type it on out, and we will try our best to get to you. Right, so the first question that I have is, and feel free to answer this yourselves, guys, what does practical magic mean to you? Aside from the movie, of course, aside from the brilliant movie that everyone loves and mentions as their favourite witchy movie, what does the concept of practical magic mean to you? Let's go, Alex Owlvine. Alex Owlvine, are we happy with that?
Works for me.
Sure.
That.
Practical magic, what it means for me. For me, it makes up a very, very big part of my practice. So it means a lot to me to kind of get in there and do stuff that just makes sense. A lot of for me, practical magic just makes sense, you know. Getting in there, doing stuff that you need, rather than just doing stuff just because, you know, doing workings that you need, doing practical workings as well, like for job and career and, you know, anything that's going on around you, things like that, things that you need, things that, you know, a lot of people, or some people might just do just like general, just like, I'll just do a prosperity spell, you know. For me, that doesn't really work. I want to do things that are specifically for things that are happening in my life. And then bringing in the things, I think makes up the larger part of what practical magic is, because I'm going to go hunting for some specific herb that only grows, you know, every 25 years and deep in the freaking Amazon jungle that costs me an arm and a leg. You know, I'm going to use rosemary instead, because rosemary goes right outside my window anytime, and pick up the rosemary instead of fucking going gallivanting around the Amazon. So for me, practical.
She's got the giggles.
Everyone always uses the Amazon as an example. Like,
so far away from us, you know. So,
oh my gosh.
in my magic, look at her. You have got the giggles.
All right, I'll stop now. I'll try. It's like school again.
So, you know, for me, practical magic is about using what you've got accessible to you. So, you know, if you've got rosemary in your garden, use it, you know. Sometimes people get too caught up in what you have to have, and oh my goodness, you have to have this to do this spell. And I feel like it's easy to get caught up in that. It is easy to get caught up in that. I will absolutely admit that. Practical magic is about being practical. It's about using what you've got at your disposal, using what's around you, and, you know, using magic for things that you need practically in your life.
Practical.
All right, thank you for making me laugh so much and for your brilliant description of practical magic. Let's see what Owlvine has to offer.
Dun, dun, dun. So when I first got into practicing, you know, I was reading the books that are like, magic is this huge thing. And I was like, okay, I need to go for that. you know, I felt like I couldn't do it where I was living because, you know, I had people living with me that I couldn't share it with. So I was like, oh, I kind of need to wait, and I'd do things when I could, but, you know, it wasn't much. And then I moved here and I have a whole room to myself, and I was like, okay, magic. And then realized that I really wasn't into that, and I wanted to do things that were, you know, kind of on the everyday, and things that were easy for me to do. And I noticed that since taking my magic into the mundane, so taking it into when I cook, or when I make myself a tea, or when my son can't get to sleep, or, you know, whatever, like that is when I really began to actually feel like a witch. It wasn't something that I carved out space to do only then. I still like to carve out space for myself every day. Usually it's like somewhere between 5 and 25 minutes. That's kind of my daily little spot that I give to myself, and that's like a little gift. But taking it into the everyday, I think really grounds it, like really grounds, well, for me, it's grounded my practice. Like it feels like something that I am rather than something that I'm trying to achieve. Yeah, so I think, I mean, absolutely what Alex said, like I'm huge on using what's around me. I do have things that I've purchased. I think probably most of us do, and things that are really fun. But when it came to spell ingredients, I was like, well, I don't want to be purchasing all this stuff all the time. You know, I have things right outside my back door. You know, I have plants and dirt and various different things from nature. Hello.
Sorry, my phone just farted. Oh shit, now it's taken me away. Fuck.
Where'd you go? Farted Alex away.
This is ridiculous.
That's a nice picture of you.
Oh, thank you.
There you are.
I'm going to mute my mic because I'm about to laugh a lot, so that way it won't.
I'm so sorry. I just totally, you know who that was? That was Ravenflower. So Ravenflower is watching. You interrupted Owlvine's beautiful speech.
That's good. It gives me time to think about something else to say now. Look at her. She's going. She's like, she's lost. It's
She's on mute.
the void. She's on mute. She's in the void of laughter. It's happened. She's gone. We may never see her again. Do I want to say anything else about practical magic? Not really. It's just like predominantly I work on like an energetic level. So like I often don't use tools. I just pour my energy into what I'm doing. And in that regard, like I am the magical tool, you know, with a capital THE. Yes, I spelled it right.
Yeah.
I'm bad at like spelling out my head. Like the tool. So I'm the tool. So if I'm
You're the biggest tool you need.
I'm the biggest fucking tool. Oh, this is gonna be one of those chats, hey. So I take myself with me, therefore I can do magic wherever I am, no matter what. So if something comes up, you know, I can do whatever it is I need. It's nice to have things with me. Like often I'll wear jewelry and stuff. Like I have some of my magical jewelry on now that I infuse with energy and then go out with into the world. I think that's another practical thing to do. So yeah, just it's about all the little things, I think, not necessarily doing, like I think there's like magic within full-on ritual space, and then there's all the little things that you do every day. So yeah,
it's like what Crimson Fire says, finding the magic in the mundane.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes.
What
well,
does it
I
mean
very
to
much
you?
align. I very much align with both of what you said, because I'm a ritualistic person. I love to engage in ritual, and I'm fortunate enough to have a coven in which to do that. And then because I have the coven, I also have the excuse of my husband, well, I'm going out with my coven, can you watch the kids? So that gives me both time and that gives me both space to have these elaborate rituals. It also gives me the opportunity to share ritual space. But because I'm having these elaborate rituals, every one of the witches in my coven, they bring something to add to rituals. So you're not lugging a whole bunch of stuff out with you, right? Now, those rituals are still very elaborate. They're very big. They're outdoors. You take baskets and bucket loads of stuff and you adorn and you have this incredible time, and it is amazing, but it's also exhausting to keep up on a regular basis. And so in between Sabbath rituals with my coven, I am extremely practical because I have the aspect, I have the view of both, right? I have the experience of lugging shit out into the middle of the wilderness. And let me just say this, my coven and we do not practice magic indoors. So everything is outdoors, no matter what weather experience we're having. So we make it very outdoor, very nature oriented. And so that, is again, that's another challenge to add, right? But for home, and I covet these moments, I make sure that whenever I'm working magic, it is in direct alignment with a need, a specific need in my life. So very much like Alex. And I make sure that everything that I have that I need to use is available to me inside my home or around my house, and so I have a certain amount of potted plants, a certain amount of plants growing in my garden, but my favorite place to go to is the kitchen pantry and my art supply, because when I'm actually getting in there and practically witching, then I'm usually doing a candle spell where I write something down on a piece of paper and burn it, and I might anoint that candle and I might anoint and prepare that paper, but they too are very small acts of practical magic that I will do ahead of time. Like I have piles of prepared paper, for instance, for times where I feel like I need it, and those piles of prepared papers are something that I did just off the cuff one day and decided that I would do something for a little bit of prosperity or something for a little bit of protection, or so I just make sure that I'm prepared and I'm well stocked in particular areas, so that if I need to work a bit of magic, it's a simple it happens very, very quickly. It happens very, very quickly. But I am not convoluted in my magic, unless, of course, by divine guidance, my goddess comes down and says, boom, this. And I'll be like, all right, then I'll march over to the flower store and I'll march over to the whatever, and I'll get that stuff done. But ordinarily, on a regular basis, it's very practical for me. It has to be accessible in my pantry or in and around my home. I need to have the time to do it as well. So I have 3 children. I'm in the same regard. I'm very limited with my time as far as magic goes inside the house. So I make sure that I weave it into the everyday. And I like to be, I'm a dramatic person. I have a dramatic personality. I'm not sure if you can tell, but so when it comes to my witchery inside the house, I'm most often than not like waving my hands up and like dancing in my living room, and including my children in the raising of energy into a space. So if I'm casting, for example, a spell for healing, then that happens during the day when my children are around. And so my children come in on it, and I'm like, and we're going to do, because I've taught them elemental dances, so they understand the elements. So I'm working with the element of fire and a candle magic, and I'm like, now let's do our fire dance. And all 3 of them are like,
oh yeah,
like this in the kitchen, in the living room, and we're in the middle of the house holding space. And my son, he just goes boom, boom, like he really helps to raise the energy. And then it's done, and I don't have to go shoo children, shoo, will I just get this and align my focus? No, I turn the music right up. I make sure that it's loud, that it's engaging, and that they're able to participate with their beautiful little energies, because that's what's practical for me at that time. To shoo them away is not practical. To include them is practical. It's also very good for their education.
I love that.
Oh yeah, we love our elemental. She's only 2, that's so cute. Yeah. Now let's have a look at some of these descriptives. Oh, Chris Ashburn says, Owlvine, the first video I saw of Owlvine was her beautiful Baba Yaga altar video. Working it. Molly Ann has asked, what are some of your limits in darker magic?
Limits.
Would anyone like to answer that? Some of your limits. For me personally, I don't sacrifice human beings. That's my limit.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that one.
I will third that one.
That's where I draw the line.
Darker magics. Yeah, I've never eaten a baby. I've never sacrificed an animal. I don't think I will. But who knows? I mean, who knows? Other than that, like, I can't think of any others really. Like, I have sent some things out to people before. What other limits could there be? I don't know. Yeah. People and so far. Yeah.
That's it. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, well, I would probably agree. When I feel like my line would be physically harming someone in the ritual space. If we want to make it specific, so if we're bringing someone into our ritual space for a darker working, and we have to harm them in any way for that working, I think that's probably my line.
That's
but
a line.
For me, I'm quite open to the darker aspects. For me, balance is a really important thing in my craft, especially the balance between this dark and this light. I feel like it becomes very easy for people to become unbalanced, especially with this new age movement. But love and light, dude. So let me just find my rose quartz. So
Namaste.
So I'm very in touch. I'm very open with that kind of stuff. And for me, these darker aspects don't necessarily have to be cursing and hexing. You know, a lot of people just immediately think, oh, I'm going to work some dark magic, I'm going to curse someone. It's not necessarily the case for me.
Yeah, I agree.
That's it. I think for me, any element of magic that involves the potential for trauma on either myself or another individual is where I would draw the line. So I'm not going to, I like to know my demons, know my deity. I don't call into ritual space. I don't invoke willy-nilly. I don't, I'm not irresponsible with holding space or sacred space or creating, enclosures in which to, energetic enclosures I'm talking about, in which to practice some darker elements. I come from a culture that sacrifices animals for ritual. I have never, by my own hands, sacrificed an animal, but I have been there and very present for it, and I've seen the process time and time and time again. Smaller animals, larger animals. That, to me, I don't draw the line there. I would do that. If I was skilled enough and trained, I would do that. I'm not skilled in that area. I don't have that type of hand, as they say in my culture. So I don't engage in anything that I'm not skilled in. And I don't feel that I could do confidently, at least, because part of cultivating a skill is, of course, practice. But if that aspect of practice then creates some form of trauma or has the potential to create trauma for myself or another person, then I don't practice that kind of magic. For me, magic is an act of control. It's change. It's supposed to be empowering, and it needs to sometimes be protective. And so, I'm happy to practice magic in that regard. But if my magic is going to significantly harm another individual without that being my intention, then I do not engage. So that's the line that I draw. Trauma is the line that I draw.
Cool.
Which includes death and dismemberment.
That would be traumatic.
Just in case, just FYI that one. We've got some beautiful things here. We've got some beautiful. We've got another question from Willow Moonshine. What are your views on? What I laugh so much, I'm all croaky. What are your views on destructive sides to the elements?
Well, for me, it's again that balance, you know, and I feel like you can absolutely use the elements for their, you know, their good qualities and their bad, destructive qualities. And I feel like if you can use those in your magic, you've got that balance between the two. And I think it's really important. I think it's always been important for me in my practice. One thing that I've carried through since the beginning of my practice has been this idea of balance. And you know, lots of things have changed in my practice over the period that I've been working with this stuff, and is continuing to change as we speak. But this whole idea of balance and equality and not having one without the other has always kind of stayed firm. So using the destructive forces of the elements, I'm all for, go for it. It's important, I think.
I like it.
For me, I feel like yeah, I've got something. I am lucky that I myself have never like been in close proximity to any extreme element. A few years ago, we had bushfires here in Victoria, and they killed a lot of people and things like that. I would never want to go through something like that. So I just kind of want to lay that out there, that I'm saying all this in respect, just in case, because I'm just going to blurt out whatever. And, you know, I'm aware that these things can be awful, like to go through, for anyone to actually experience flooding or tsunamis or extreme fire or extreme wind or, you know, earthquakes, that kind of thing. In saying that though, like I feel like I don't know if true is the right word, but the depth of power in the elementals is in that destructive force. Like you don't truly, I think, understand the power of water until it is rushing at you, or the power of wind until you experience a cyclone, a tornado. Like, so I think we can really harness that. Like, I think it helps in an energetic and mental space to perhaps connect with those destructive forces of the elements, you know, in here, to really kind of build up that energy and that power to work with them, if that makes sense. So that's something I think of, for example, when I'm working with fire. Like I haven't even seen fires that big, but I've seen big-ish fires, and it's insane the difference from a candle flame to a bonfire, for example, to then a bushfire is insane. So kind of, I guess, energetically going up that rung into that destructive force mentally, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's it. And you've said something really important in that, and that is that the when the elements are raging, when they're demonstrating their power, their inherent power, that is when you actually see them. You don't see them in the gentle breeze, in the gentle earth, in the gentle candle flame of a fire. Yes, you do. But you have to understand that all that is controlled. It's controlled largely by man. We control the elements, or we think that we control the elements. And then when the elements are truly wanting to have a conversation and they're truly wanting to define their purpose, then they rage. They rage. They rage like volcanoes, like bushfires, like tornadoes, typhoons, cyclones, tsunamis, underwater earthquakes, above ground earthquakes, landslides. You know, there's just so much that an element is capable of. And I've got to say, as a person who has a power element in air, my power element is air, I have to go to the place that is the windiest. I go out to collect my air, my magic, to empower things in the middle of storms. I was excited when the cyclone was heading up my way, but never came, because I was going to access the raging winds of that of that particular cyclone, and I was excited for that. I was respectful of that excitement as well. I understood that with a cyclone comes a lot of destruction, but there's also the potential to view the element that I am very, very attuned to in a grand scale. One of the most interesting things that I did since I've lived here in Australia is when I was living in the Northern Territory, I went to the Darwin Museum. And the Darwin Museum is a fucking crazy place. Now, we have a legendary, so it is. It's got a taxidermied 15-meter long crocodile called Sweetheart. You can press a little button and it makes a sound, right?
Oh, wow.
So it's fucking ridiculous. It's awesome. Like, ridiculous is awesome. But one of the things that I did see was the destruction of Cyclone Tracy. Now, Cyclone Tracy is a legendary cyclone, you know, and a cyclone is essentially, in more American terms, a typhoon. And it's a legendary cyclone. It was the category 5. We have our cyclones graded in categories, and 5 is the highest. And it swept through Darwin around Christmas time, and it created the most incredible amount of destruction. It was like a bomb had hit the area. And they have these displays of remnants from Cyclone Tracy, twisted bark, iron, cars that have just been crumpled into millions of pieces. And you walk through this example of what a cyclone did, and you're just like, wow, like you never know how much a stream or current of wind, of air, can affect like the strongest of metals. Like, you don't understand that until you actually see it all warped and crinkled like a piece of paper, essentially. And then you get to walk into this room and it's all dark. This room is all dark. You walk in there and you grab the hand of the person that you're with. In that case, it was my husband. And you press the button. And what they've managed to do is catch the recording from videos taken of Cyclone Tracy of the sound of the howling winds. And there is nothing more eerie than being in this dark room, hearing this stuff twist and scrape and this. It's like a fine scream in the air that runs through the entire recording. It's just like this scream. And it's so eerie. It's not the gentle whistle of the wind. Imagine that gentle whistle of the wind as a scream. And so you get to meet the energy of an element when they're in their destructive force. And that is the way that I personally access that within me. My humanity, my cells, my genetic makeup, it actively attunes to that destruction, because it pulls out of me something that's more than what I'm accustomed to seeing on the everyday. So I respond to it in a way. I also think that it brings out the best in people. In the floods in Brisbane, everybody came out with their gumboots to help. So it brings out this element of support and the positive side of humanity where that happens. In the bushfires and the Black Saturday fires, people from all over the place came to help. And so you get this aspect of humanity without the usual ego, just one person trying to help another person. And so at times I think it sets something in motion that is much more powerful than initially meets the eye. So that's just my personal perspective. Woo! We've got a lot of questions. My gosh, I don't even know how we're going to be able to get through this.
We all talk to.
All right, let's move on to some of the questions that I've written down here. Okay, so I guess within the terms of practical magic, we've also discussed. We've discussed practical magic. We've discussed, you know, lines with the darker arts. We've discussed elements. What about hands-on witchcraft? So I'm going to meld these two questions into one, because I think we've partly discussed some of those elements in one of our first questions. So describe to me each like an act of hands-on witchcraft that was off the cuff, you know, spur of the moment, something that you use. You don't have to tell the full breadth of the ritual or the magical working that you did, but just the circumstances and the amazing results that you got from that.
Sure.
Go.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I love doing, and the only thing I can kind of really relate to being similar would be like a mojo bag or something, but it isn't. what I use is like a big strip of like fabric, and it'll be just like an offcut or something, just like whatever I've got lying around, really. A big strip, and what I'll do is I will lay it out on my altar, and I will put all the little things in it. So I'll put some herbs, I'll put some crystals, and I'll be thinking, you know, why am I putting this in here, and what is this going to do in here, and all the while like thinking about what my intention is. So putting these things in here, then I will wrap it up, and I'll wrap it up super duper tightly. So I'll wind it, and I'll wind it round, and then tie it off in a little knot, like really tightly. And you know, pulling that knot for me like is like a symbol of, all right, this shit's done. You know, like tying that knot is like, all good, this is done. So I've got this like little bundle. It's like a little bundle of magical goodness. So I've got this little bundle, and you know, I'll use the color of the fabric corresponds. Sometimes, not necessarily. It just depends on what I've got. But then I will either keep it on my person. I will put it in my cauldron, because my cauldron for me is a very powerful manifestation tool for me. That's how I use a cauldron. So for example, I've got this particular working in my cauldron at the minute, and what I will do is I will feed it. So I will feed it with oils, I will feed it with my energy, I will feed it with incenses, and all of this happens in this cauldron. So all of this incredible energy is all, you know, just oozing and mixing like a potion would in this cauldron. So I love to make these little mojo-y bundle thingies.
Yes, that sounds awesome. When you were describing the cauldron, I was just like, oh my God, it's like we're one and the same.
I love my cauldron. It's so pretty. I'll show it to you. It's copper.
Ooh.
And it's got the 3 little legs.
Oh,
and the chain. Like, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Little pot belly. And it's all iron, and it's, I just love it.
That's great. I love that. There's something copper conducts energy. Most people know this. So there's something about like having a copper cauldron or a copper pot or a copper something or other. I managed to snag a beautiful, I think it was like $4 from Good Sammy's, and it was this Japanese tea thing, and it was this beautiful copper indented copper pot with this really long wooden handle, with a rod of copper that went straight through. But it was this beautiful $4. I took it home, put some brass on it. It was just like bing, and suddenly that was an incense burner.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. All right, Owlvine, how about you?
Well, I know I probably have better examples, but they haven't come to my mind. So I'll say this one. So something I do, I would say semi-regularly, is put an energetic shield around my car when I drive. For me, what I do is I center and ground. That's like a big thing. Connect down and then push the energy out and around, and I see it as a color around my car, in the shape of my car. The other day I was driving somewhere and I did this, because usually it's like when I'm in the car, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do it now. You know, it just kind of comes to me sporadically. And I was driving and I almost had an accident. So I'd put up this shield and I came over a crest of a hill, and this is out sort of more country area. So it's 100 Ks, which I don't know how fast that is in miles. I'm sorry to everyone who only knows miles. It's fast anyway. And just about like, it was a dangerous spot, but someone had pulled over on the side of the road, and they were facing, like I was coming down here, and they were facing in towards the road. And as I came over the crest of the hill, they pulled out in front of me, and my brakes aren't brilliant. So I've got an older car, and I slammed on the brakes, and there was a guy behind me as well. And I skidded down towards the car, and luckily there was no one else coming the other way. And I couldn't even stop like where he was. And I ended up kind of going around, and, you know, it was fine. But it was really interesting because as soon as that happened and I drove off, like I knew that I was protected the whole time. Like I didn't freak out. Whereas normally I'd be like, oh my God, you know, holy shit. But I just I knew. I was like, you're protected. Like that came into my head. And just went around the car and, you know, went along my drive. And usually after something like that, you know, I would be quite shaky, you know, from the adrenaline or whatever. But I was just like, I'm good, turn on my music, like I'm fine. So yeah, I think that's probably a good example of something I've done like not too long before and had a really good result from. I didn't die, so
Oh my gosh.
always bubble your car.
Always bubble your car. I do that with planes. I have flown so much in my life, and I know the statistics for flights. The more flights you have, the more likelihood you're going to end up. And I've flown a lot, people, like much more than the average bear. And so I've started to take alternative routes. I've actually traveled long distances on a coal liner, you know, across long waters. But that didn't fare as well because that's a whole other story. Anyway, that's a fucking huge story. So for me, like very, very recently, my daughter, she's 6 years old, and she's turning 7 in October. So she's in year 1 at school, and we started like last year. She had prep at school, and she went every day for prep. You know, was excited to go, sat down, had a great time. Come year 1, her class got changed around a little bit, but she still had a lot of people from her previous prep class in her class. So everything was fine. The teacher seems nice enough. I'm not super stoked with her, but she seems nice enough. And Savannah developed this thing. That's the name of my daughter, Savannah. She developed this thing whereby every time I would drop her off at school, she would latch onto me and cry and say she didn't want me to leave. And then emerged some talk of bullying, then emerged some talk of exclusions and, you know, that kind of thing. And so I've marched in to the school and I've spoken to the teacher and I've let her know in no uncertain terms that I'm horrendously dissatisfied with the fact that my daughter is so displeased with her school, and she's only 6 years old, and I expect there to be much more hands-on care and eyes on my prize, essentially. And so after intimidating the pants off her, I waltzed home and I put together a little something. I put together a sigil made of blood, and I anointed that sigil and I infused it with motherly rage, the rage of a mother who is being incredibly protective of her kin, essentially. And so I folded that up and I marched back down to the school. This is all in the same day because I'm an act when you need to act. Don't put things off. And I knocked on the door and I walked in, and I don't know if it like I don't recall having any blood on my hands or my face. It wasn't that I looked ghastly, but when I walked, like it wasn't like that. I looked very this is what I looked like. I don't think I went like these ones, you know, but when I walked in there, I must have walked in with a very big energy sphere around me. My energy was projected out because I was in a very powerful state of mind. And I walked in, and the teacher went like she was immediately startled by me. She goes, "Oh my God, you really scared me." And I'm like, and I just looked at her and with these crazy sort of eyes, I'm like, I'm just here for my daughter's bag. And I put this thing in her bag and I whipped out some oil and I anointed, I put bind runes on her bag. The entire school class was sitting there watching me. The teacher was watching me.
Yes.
And I turned around and I went, "Namaste, have a nice day." And I walked out. And I'm like, that was all I could think of saying. Because I felt like I had to bring that down just a little bit because I'm like, fucking hell, like I'm intense. Once I was doing the bind runes and I was using some nice oils, I was starting to calm right down. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm in a very intense, I bet I've got crazy eyes. Like I know myself, I know what I look like, you know. I bet I've got crazy eyes. So I turned around and it like, as it turns out, you should just go with the flow. You should never just try and tone it down and do something ultra crazy. I never say namaste, ever, to anyone. So So I'm like, I don't know why I felt the need to say it there, but I did it and I walked off. And for the following week, which led on to this last week before they went on to school break, my daughter walked up those stairs and went, "Bye, Mum," with a big smile on her face. I picked her up. "How was your day?" "Great, we did this." And I'm like, nailed it. Fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
Looked like a crazy person, but nailed it.
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So let's have a look at some. Why can't I access the earlier feed? It's really bizarre. Like the feed is just like disappearing so quickly, and I can't go further up.
It does that. What have I got? I've got it all the way back. That's weird.
I do not have it. I don't have it.
What you need
All
to
right.
know? Questions.
There's some questions that we've missed. I would have thought elements are neutral. I didn't think they would be destructive. They're usually amplified by another element to create some form of destruction. That was a thought from Earthly Alchemy. Noah's here. I'm back very far, obviously. Okay. Owlvine, did you see this massive question here for you?
You got a big one.
Big question.
It says, Owlvine, how do you deal with the difference of such a personal spirituality that you have in regard to, how do you deal with the difference of such a personal spirituality that you have in regard to spiritualities of people that practice Western magic have? Not sure if that's clear. It's not reading very clear to me.
I'm not sure. I mean, I would say that I do have a very Western spirituality. Very much so. Like, I mean, even though I'm not Wiccan and I've never studied Wicca, for example, I would say that my practice is very much influenced by it, just because a lot of the information that comes to me is through that. Yeah, look, honestly, I just do my thing. Like, I go through different stages where I start to worry about what other people are doing and what they're thinking and stuff. And then I go, again, as Crimson Fire says, banish the bullshit. That is, like, get rid of the measuring stick. It's got nothing to do with anyone else, whatever. Yeah, so I just do my own thing in my life and in my room and in my house and whatever. And I like learning from other people, but I try not to put any of what they're saying onto my practice. If there are things that I feel resonate with me, then I'm like, cool, how can I fold that in? But yeah, I think that's the answer to that question. Hopefully I answered that right. Yeah. I
think so. He's just responding here. Yeah, I think you did fine. There's a little question here about, there was a little bit of talk amongst the feed about the elements being neutral. I find that to be, I don't consider any element to be neutral because they're very, probably, if you're talking about neutral in the sense of not good, not bad, then yes, I agree with that. But I find that the elements are the quintessence of life. And so they're amplified points. And in that regard, I don't think that they're neutral. So if they're like, fire is to me the epitome of creative aspects, and that's the epitome. You can be creative, a human being can be creative, they can do something creative, and eventually it just erupts in flame. And the flame, the aspect of personified element, is to me the epitome, the peak, the quintessence. But to say that they are neither good nor bad, then neutral, yes. In that regard, yes. But I do believe that they are all imbued with a function. They are all imbued with a function. And so they've got a personality, a gentle breeze to a swirling vortex of a tornado. That's two very different, two different energies, essentially. So they have a very broad spectrum. So perhaps they're balanced, or human likability is seen as more neutral, but I personally prefer it when the winds are really up, when the rain is gushing down. Like, I've been in several different natural disasters, which is actually, now that I say it out loud, very strange that I have been in so many natural disasters. I've been in flood, fire, cyclone. What am I missing? Flood. I have not been in I have not been in an earthquake situation, but I've been very close to a landslide situation. So we'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll allow it.
It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. But to be fair, though, I travel a lot. I move around a lot. And people who generally stay in one area, they'll experience one type of phenomenon in their natural systems. And occasionally they'll experience a natural disaster. But it's generally defined by the space that they're in. We don't get tsunamis out here. We get regular cyclones. So being here would expose you to one kind of natural disaster. And likewise, you know, if you're living on the volcanic island of, say, Hawaii, then you're going to be privy to a lot more, you know, volcanic action, and likewise in Mount St. Helens, and, you know, so your location, your geography kind of defines what you're going to be privy to in the terms of natural disaster.
Definitely.
All right, what have we got? What have we got?
I do have a question that you may have, like, let me speak. That may have gone from your thing. It was from, like, pretty early on.
Yeah.
The question was, do you use pop culture in your spells? From Celine.
Pop culture.
Oh, I can take this one.
Go.
Coming through my craft as a teenager, I can definitely relate to this. You know, because the start of my practice, what got me on this path was Harry Potter. And I don't know whether you guys have heard the story, but basically when I was just a huge, crazy, ridiculously obsessed Harry Potter fan. So when that was ending, I was needing to fill this hole in my soul. And that's what led me to start researching and practicing witchcraft. Mm-hmm. That's in a nutshell. So coming from that, and then, you know, jumping on board and watching shows like Charmed, and watching shows like The Vampire Diaries and the originals, and the movies like The Craft and Practical Magic and all this stuff, I can definitely understand how it can inspire a craft. To go to say, what was it? Did they use the word influence? I'm not sure, but
do you use pop culture in your spells?
Oh, okay, sure. I can definitely see how pop culture can influence a craft or influence a practice. For example, a few years ago, I bought a Charmed Book of Shadows replica. And then I went on to make my own, and that was my Book of Shadows. And then I fucked that off, and that's again is another long story. But some of the spell pages that are in that book that I got, I was flipping through, and I'm like, actually, you know what? There's no reason why some of these spells or some of these words can't be brought into my craft. So I did a lot of altering. So I would take this spell that was in this Charmed Book of Shadows, and I would say, all right, so basically it's just the words written out on the page with some pretty artwork. Okay, how can I make this a real spell? So then you think, okay, so what's our intention? What herbs can we bring into this? What correspondences of crystals, of candles, of colors can I bring into this to create a sense of real magic? And that's something that I've done in the past. So looking at, and, you know, because words themselves are very powerful, and just because it was written for a TV show, if you set your intention around those words, there's no reason why that can't become a spell or a working. But in saying that as well, I mean, a lot of them were pretty fantastical, you know, to change one's appearance and to all of that stuff. But some of them, you know, did actually resonate with me on a level that was, this can actually work if I make it that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. That makes perfect sense.
So,
yeah.
In that sense, pop culture has both inspired and influenced, and I have used pop culture in that way in my practice before.
It's cool.
I like it.
I think that pop culture is like almost like a modern day mythology. Like I think it's something really powerful, because you've got worlds set up for you already, you know, through books and movies and, you know, whatever. And I think it's an amazing thing to actually harness that and bring it into your craft, like go into that space. Yeah, and I really do feel like it is like almost a modern day mythology, because the mythology that we read, like, you know, to our scientific minds, like it didn't actually happen, right? You know, these gods didn't stomp around on the earth and do all these different things. It's a kind of story. It's a sacred story, but it's a story. And you know, I think that's like I've read into chaos magic and things like that, and I think that's something that I don't really understand the whole chaos thing exactly, because there are people who are like, this is chaos magic, not that. This is chaos. This is. So who knows? But I have heard of a lot of people who are into kind of the chaos stuff, and they use a lot of pop culture. And the thing is, there is energy being sent to that thing, so that book or that story or that TV show. Like there's a lot of energy that happens in there that you can bring into your craft as well, I think. And I know there's like this huge wave, I keep hearing about it from other people, but there's like this Tumblr wave of like witches who are here because of Coven, you know, AHS Coven and all these different things, you know, and people are like, how dare they? Like, they're so stupid, you know, they're into these TV shows. But I think it's cool. Like, you know, it's that inspiration to come into the craft. And it can shape an aesthetic for that person, but I think that's a beautiful thing too. You know, we all come into this differently. So I think I haven't really used a lot of pop culture myself, but I love the concept. So
Yeah. Look, I think that pop culture can be very igniting, just as like literature can be igniting. You know, music is very igniting. We always draw to something. We're drawn to these things naturally because they speak to a particular part of ourselves, and so we find a kinship and a similarity there. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find a single individual who, during the time of the late 90s, when the movie The Craft came out, didn't try that light as a feather, stiff as a board thing. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find that. You'd also be hard pressed to find someone who didn't sit around, like a group of people who didn't sit around in a circle saying it is better that you should rush upon this blade than enter the circle with fear in your heart. Like, you know, these are iconic things that just stay within the human consciousness because they were influential. Same with music. I mean, you know, Stevie Nicks, gosh, her Rhiannon song, like, you know, it was sung, it's sung loud, it's sung proud, it's sung by pagans, and pagans that have an affinity with Stevie Nicks because of her witchy ways, and, you know, and on and on and on. And so I think it's perfectly acceptable to draw inspiration from pop culture to allow it to fuel. Like, you know, in the same way as, say, music is used to raise energy, for instance, you could, the type of music that I like and the type of music that somebody else likes is completely different. The thing that gets me going is going to be very different to, you know, to another person. And so you might get witches out there that are listening to death metal to raise their energy because that's what speaks to them, and that's very modern culture. And you might get me banging on my bongo singing my songs, you know, seeking out like female vocal chanting sounds on YouTube. Like, that's my kind of thing. And when I hear that, like, there's a woman on YouTube, she's got a Scandinavian name, and she has this one song where she's holding a Scandinavian drum and she's just beating that drum and she's just singing, and I'm like, well,
I know that one. I think it's
I'm ready to witch now. I'm so ready. Energy is raised. I'm good to go.
I love that song. I know exactly.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful song. I can't pronounce the name of the woman though, but yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. So I think pop culture has extreme reference, and I think you're right when you say that, you know, mythology is like pop culture, like, you know, pop culture is like our mythology. And you have to look at some of these actresses that have passed away. Take, for instance, Marilyn Monroe. she has left a legacy. People are Marilyn Monroe crazy, you know, and going back, you'll see certain actors who have since passed away, and yet their legacy, their reputation is held in such high regard that people still mention the awesomeness of such and such on camera, the awesomeness of this person on camera, the tortured artist that was Marilyn Monroe. And you talk about something long enough, and it's just like that line in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, you know, history becomes legend, legend becomes myth, and then they're forgotten essentially. And so I think that there is something to that. So it's obviously affecting our consciousness. Pop culture affects us directly. We are immersed in modern culture. Pop culture, you know, affects us directly. So it stands to reason that we work with some of those energies, just, you know, especially the ones that naturally speak to you. You can't force these sorts of things, of course, but if there's something that really catches your eye, that ignites the little fire of magic, then by all means go there. But you know, it's not somewhere that I go very often. I prefer things to be a little bit more archaic, and I know that that's not the case for everybody, but you know, I don't really reference too much from pop culture. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't altogether, but I don't recall referencing too much or pulling in too much in that regard. So that's my answer to that question. What have we got here? Something on blood magic.
Ew.
Did you use blood magic? Do you use blood magic? Who uses blood magic? I certainly do.
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fabulous, fabulous. There's a responsibility to harvesting blood, folks. This does not mean go out there with your super sharp athame and slash a wrist. Like ownership, responsibility, like duty of care, all of these things should be considered. But I think that the use of blood in ritual is time honored. It has existed for the longest time, just as animal sacrifice and ritual possession has existed. I'm very accustomed to seeing blood in ritual, and I would have to go as far as to say that, you know, it's the norm. It is a norm for me. It's not something that I would do every single ritual, but it is a norm.
No, yeah, absolutely. It's not something that I use. I wouldn't say I use blood magic often, but I do absolutely use it, and I do absolutely respect the, you know, the power and the energy that it can add to a spell. I think it's quite phenomenal. So I love using blood in magic. I think it's fabulous. As I said in I don't know who I was talking to. I was talking to someone on a live, and my path is coming into winter. It's taking a very Norse flavor, I feel. It's just something that's really kind of attracting me at the moment. And I said, you know, all I want in my craft is blood, bone, and fur. Like, that's just what my soul is calling for at the minute. So I don't know what winter has in store for me in terms of using blood magic, but I have and I will, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
I feel like I'm reading a menu and all of the choices are yummy. Like, yeah, I'll have one of one of those.
Yeah, I'll have some of that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll have some of that Norse. I'll have some of that Norse magic. I haven't finished watching the newer episodes of Vikings, but I was watching, I think, the last one that aired on Australian Netflix, which Australian Netflix is actually quite shit. It's not up to date at all. But I finished watching that, and I'm just like, whenever you watch Vikings, it's a bit like, God, I'm so not hardcore. I'm just so not.
Well, that's the thing. I've wanted to
such
watch
a pussy.
I've wanted to watch Vikings for such a long time. And this goes back to the question of pop culture influencing. And so I've recently started watching it on Australian Netflix. And I'm halfway through season 3, I think, and that's the last season that's on Netflix. So
I think something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to figure out a way to watch season 4, because I think there is a 4th season. But watching it and being like, oh, wow, like how awesome is that, you know? And wanting to incorporate that, because I've got Norse and Germanic heritage. And I was talking to Crimson Fire. It was probably in a Southern Witches chat, but it was around the equinox time where this kind of came to me. And I'm very much in touch with my Italian culture, and I do use a lot of Italian forms of folk magic in my practice, a lot. It's got a very strong Italian flavor. And right around the equinox was when I wanted to incorporate more of the Norse and more of the Germanic ways of doing things. And Crimson said, she said, it's funny that it falls around this time of the equinox, because, you know, I want to experience that equality in my ancestry, bringing that in to balance out the Italian stuff that I use. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Synchronicity.
That's cool. Yeah, I like it. I think that our processes, our inner processes, mirror our outward processes. So whatever's going on in nature is often, you know, we mirror that in some regard. And if that's what the call is for you, that's what the call is for you. I have no ancestry in colder climates. I think Portuguese, maybe a little bit of Europe up there. I have a lot of Italian in my bloodline as well. But it's not that isolated, icy landscape. And so when I think Vikings, it is something that is very, very foreign to me. And it's that foreign aspect that really draws me in. I'm like, this is so different from everything I've ever seen before in my life. And I'm like a bug to the flame in that regard.
Yeah.
So I like it. If you've got it in your bloodlines, it's going to call to you essentially. I find that ancestry, it has a very loud call. When it calls, and you must go. When it calls, you must go. And if you don't go, things will start to happen in your life until you get so frustrated that you're just like, fucking fine, I'm going to go
there. Yeah. That was me. That was me working with my archangels. They were freaking banging down my door by the end of it. And I was like, okay.
I love it. Owlvine, did you have anything to say there? Blood magic?
What do I have to say? I love all that stuff. Like I love getting really primal in my magical space. That's something for me, like that flicks my switch. And when I think witchcraft, I think of the hag in the woods, you know, messy hair, dirt everywhere, blood, bones, all that kind of stuff. Like that just makes me excited. So when I've used blood in my magic, like you better believe it works. It's just like pow. It's like so, I don't know, there's almost like a real like fiery element to it or something, I think. And yeah, I absolutely love using it. And I think that's all. Oh God, my brain's not working properly today.
I love it. Go make yourself another cuppa. Go make yourself another cup of tea.
I actually haven't had breakfast. So that's probably the problem.
I've had 2 cups of tea. That's been my breakfast. And away we go. I've just got a quick question I'm going to answer here for Chrislinia. And that is, she writes, listening to Avalon talk about raising energy, does one need to raise energy in a loud or full-on type of way? I tend to raise energy, but in a quiet, meditative and intense way. That's absolutely fine. There's many ways to raise energy. There's many, many ways. And for some people, silence is the best way. For other people, just loud chaos is the best way. And for others, any of that spectrum in between is the right way. So I would say that that's...
Yeah.
Anything to add, folks? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, whatever works for you, whatever gets you going and gets your juices flowing, whether it be sitting there, you know, in silence and really in self. If you can spark that energy, that's incredible. But if you need, you know, music and dancing and singing and all of that loud, awesome, chaotic stuff, then go for it. Whatever you need. One of the ways that I love to raise energy is not necessarily loud and chaotic, is just to kind of sit with my singing bowl and just let that just take me places. The singing bowl has resonated with me for a really long time, and I love using my singing bowl. Just the vibrations that it just emits is just phenomenal to me. Like I can just feel it in my soul, and it's awesome. I love my singing bowl. So that's one of the ways that I quite simply will just kind of play my singing bowl to raise energy. It's not necessarily loud and chaotic. It's very soothing and very vibrational, but it definitely raises those energies.
I just had something here on the side that, you know, the Scandinavian girl with the drum banging, it's Evior. Chris Ashburn and Soren both wrote Evior. So in case anyone was wondering what we were talking about with the beautiful Scandinavian woman and that voice that she just, amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Oh my gosh. So I was just reading that. But excellent, excellent stuff. Excellent. Oh my gosh. Does anyone... Can you both start scrolling for questions? Because I keep losing all of these questions.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. We've got one from Chris Linear. Question: do you incorporate your ancestry heritage into your magic? I think Alex answered that a bit. Thoughts in terms of using heritage and also finding the balance of heritage and interest that is outside of heritage.
Using heritage and also
That's a good one.
That's a good one. Yeah, well, like I said, you know, I've got a good mix of things in my blood. My dad is half Dutch, half Italian. My mum is Australian, but going back, we have you know, the usual convict mix of Irish, Scottish, and English. And I've been lucky enough to be able to trace my ancestry back quite well. I can trace my Dutch heritage back to 1545, I think.
Woo!
Which is pretty awesome. The Italian is a little touch and go, mostly because just the record keeping just wasn't a thing. My Italian family came from a very small village of population, like a couple of hundred. So this whole idea of record keeping wasn't really a thing. So that's quite hard for me to trace back. And in terms of my English, Irish, Scottish, that's pretty all right as well. So for me, I use a lot of those different things culturally, you know, Italian folk magic that, you know, I've just observed in my family that they just do. It's just something that they do. They don't necessarily think that it's magic. And because they're all Catholics, you know, it's this really interesting melding of the two, which I do in my craft a lot, the melding of Catholic or Christian practices with witchcraft and magic. And that for the Italians is something that they just do, using saints, using archangels, using prayers, using rosary, using the sign of the cross, using things that they have accessible. Italian witchcraft is very, very practical. You know, they will use salt, they will use olive oil, and they will use water. You know, they will use scissors, they will use sewing needles, they will use broomsticks, they will use all of the things that they have accessible to them, which is what I really, really love. Heading now into this Norse situation that's happening to me is a way that I am trying to get in touch a little bit more with my Germanic and Dutch heritage, going further back into this idea of, you know, Norse and using Norse magic and Norse shamanism and runes and fur and blood and bones and all that yummy stuff. I just want to do this, you know, and like Owlvine said, it's a very primal kind of energy. It's very raw, and I feel like I'm being attracted to that very raw energy because I think that is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think you have to go against the tame from time to time. We're a very tame society. Our houses are tame, our constructs are tame, our cars are tame. You know, we don't have, our neighborhoods are very lovely and tame, our gardens are tame, you know. So I think from time to time that primal call, it is that rebellious ignition inside of you, and it just sort of pushes you out there and wanting to do something that goes much more left of field, much more against cultural norms than what you're necessarily geared towards, what's socially acceptable for you at the time. So I think that to honor both, I honor the wild times the wild inside of me at this time of the year. And I was saying this before we went on chat with Owlvine, because you know, it's cooler. My environment is, you know, is accessible at this time of the year. There's not a lot of snakes around, not a lot of biting creatures. The weather becomes much more, you know, conducive to going outdoors and camping, and you can have a bit of a fire without melting your ass off. And so it's a much more wild time for me this time of the year. And so I cringe at the thought of summer. Some people are like, yay, I love summer, but I cringe at the thought of summer because it makes me retreat into myself. And that wildness is stifled. It's very stifled in summertime because I can't be out there for very long. But I think that primal call is incredibly important. And whether that primal call be within your heritage or outside of your heritage, exterior to that which you're used to, I think the call is what defines where you go. Like if you feel the call, then you follow the call. That's nature, that's deity, that's spirit guiding you. If you're Celtic or you're American right now and you feel an Egyptian call loud and clear in the distance, and you go follow that call and see where it takes you, and you know, likewise elsewhere. As far as I'm concerned though, like, you know, you're looking at mitochondrial DNA, we all crawled out of the ooze, we have our genetic Eve, you know, and we all originate from the same species, blood, person, etc. So that's my thought on that. I think I just pissed off an entire religion saying that on my on my channel.
Good on ya.
How dare you, mitochondrial DNA, it does not exist.
Oh, you try and be inclusive. You can't include everyone at all times, can you?
No. I think you find your niche and you go there. Don't annoy yourself if you don't have to.
Yep.
Oh my God. What about you, Owlvine? Do you reach out outside of your heritage? I have to go and check the door. I'll be right back. I'll just pause my my mic.
Yeah, you did it already.
I'll just put them back.
Oh, she's so funny. Okay, so I haven't really got into any intense ancestral work. Like I was attracted to Baba Yaga, I think because she is Scandinavian and that's my mother's side of the family. Like my mum is the firstborn in Australia. The rest were born in Poland or the Ukraine, whatever, still live there. And I work with a couple of Celtic deities as well. And my father's side is Irish, further back, and you know, all around from the UK. I haven't had that ancestry trace back yet. I really want to do that ancestry DNA test and find out.
Oh, so do I. I've been talking about it for months. I really want to do it.
I really want to do it. And what was interesting is I watched this or read this little article the other day, and they had 4 sisters and they tested each of their DNA, and all of them were really different. Because I had in my head, oh, if I get tested, then my sisters will kind of know, you know, where they're at as well. But some of them had, so for example, this one girl wanted to find out how Irish she was, and she had like hardly any Irish in her, and her sister was like over 50%. And then another sister of hers had Chinese in her, and none of the other girls did, and things like that. So it's fascinating stuff. So we're all very different.
Yeah, I find it so fascinating.
Yeah, so I really want to do that. I would love to know if I have any ancestry in kind of northwestern Europe. That's sort of an area that I feel quite called to. In terms of working with ancestors, I have worked with my grandma specifically. I've been feeling called to do more ancestral work. Again, I think it's this time of year as well, coming into this season. Like, this is my magical season. The dark half of the year is like this switch is flicked, and I'm like, yeah, I'm back, baby, and like I'm getting into it. That's it. Woo! And when I get into that primal self, that's when I'm doing more ritualistic magic. Like to me, that's where I go. When I say ritual, it's not like the 4 candles and call the quarters and stuff like that. I don't do that. But what is it? It's like this dramatized thing happening in my head, and I become this woman who lived thousands and thousands of years ago, and you know, like get into that that guttural space, and that to me is probably a link to ancestral work right there. It's not something that I've really gone into consciously yet to sort of understand. But like I said, I've been feeling more called to do that. So yes, I absolutely think that you go where your gut, where your intuition is telling you. Like, I'm massive on that. Like, if I am a kind of witch, it's an intuitive witch, probably. That's how I would probably describe myself. Like, it's just whatever call is happening in here is where you're supposed to go. You don't have to share things publicly either, because I know there could be a lot of that, like, you know, just that separation things. And you know, our history is very dirty. Like, there's a lot of racism and horrible things that have happened because of it. So I understand why there's still an attitude for a lot of people, you know, for a lot of people who've felt that they are a minority. So, you know, be respectful in that way, but anything that you do within your own practice, in your own home, like, go nuts. You can do whatever you want. So I would say, yeah, if something outside of your heritage is calling you, like, absolutely go there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And seek to educate as well. Seek to educate. Seek to learn pronunciations where you can. I mean, I work a little bit with the Celtic, the British pantheon, and I've got to say that Gaelic is not my favorite language. And learning how to say several words from that particular era, time, space, geography is fucking difficult. And I have a pronunciation, a dialect CD that I got when I was studying Druidry through the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. They provide you with an English translation, a pronunciation CD that you can listen to. And it's still not easy. It's still not easy, but you seek to educate, not just in linguistics, not just in dialect, but in practices, so that you make sure that you're doing, you know, honor to the area in which you're researching, that you're going to practice, and that's something that's really important. But yeah, I'm a little bit fascinated with languages, so I like to know how things are pronounced. And here in Australia, for instance, the Culloch, the Welsh or the Scottish goddess of wintertime, Biara, the Queen of Winter, essentially, from the Scottish landscape, she is oftentimes referred to as the Caliche or the Caliche. Right, but you hear a Scotsman talk about it, and it's the Culloch, and then you just realize how far off the language is. And I'm one of those individuals that when I call my Odisha, for instance, I don't speak Yoruba, but I learnt Yoruba. I learnt the Yoruba songs. I learnt the words in Yoruba food. That was part of my training when I initiated, and I was raised, and I hear people talking about the Odisha. I know that they're missing out on something very important by not knowing how to say the name, the call. You know, they're not missing out on the full breadth of the experience, but there's something very special there that resonates within that linguistics and that calls directly to that deity. And I find that language is really fascinating in that regard. So doing the research and actually learning what you need to go from a cross-cultural perspective, whether or not you're in your own culture or you're reaching outside of that culture. And you know, that's really important. I would also like to say that human expression can sometimes fill that void. So if you can't figure out how to pronounce the name of something, you can sing your ass off. You can scream, you can beat drums, you can access that same energy in a way that is uniquely expressive to you and that shows a vulnerable, authentic part of yourself. And then that connection can be made likewise. It doesn't mean that you need to learn how to speak Chinese, ancient Latin, Yoruba, etc., to connect with that, but there are ways of connecting. The idea is to project as much energy, focus, and desire for knowledge and expansion with the intention of authentic expression there at all times. At all times. Oh my God. I just heard myself out loud. I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are? All those out-of-body experiences and just go, what the fuck are you right now?
Yeah, what did you just say? What are you saying?
What? Like, what?
Really just say that?
Oh, she's channeling.
Stop it. Oh my God, stop it. All right, we've got lots of stuff coming up, but I do want to ask you a question because it's going to be a favorite. It's going to be a favorite. So question 4 is, what are some of your favorite witchy items that make you just want to practice magic, that make you just want to witch, that make it accessible for you to witch off cuff, like the things that you utilize, that you love, that might be on your altar or as a tool. It could be a herb, it could be a crystal. Just list some things out. Just, if you know, no more than 5 each, so that we can get this flowing. No more.
Are you ready, Alan?
So, I'm ready. I'm ready. Mine would be Florida water, a big one for me.
Woo!
Florida water. If Gemma is here, Gemma, we were talking the other day. Sorry, I just need to go off on a little tangent. We were having a Southern Witches chat the other day, and Gemma, by Feather Branch and Stone, had us in hysterics because of a comment she made about Florida water and using it as a douche. We were talking about Florida water, and she comes out in the chat in big, like, caps lock letters, "Do not use Florida water as a douche." And we just lost it. We were laughing. I was crying. It was just incredible.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, Earthly Alchemy and Crimson Fire were there, and they know what we're talking about. But fuck, it was funny. Secondly, so yeah, Florida water. Secondly, would be frankincense. Like, I just love that stuff so much. I love frankincense. Thirdly, would be bones. I love using bones. Bones get me just seeing them, and they're, you know, the whole bone aesthetic for me is just incredible. So I love bones. That's 3. 4, 4 crystals, probably lapis lazuli. I love working with lapis.
Nice stone.
Yeah, it's a beautiful stone. Lapis and me, I feel we go way back, and I've got little bits and pieces of jewelry and things in lapis that I work with a lot. 4 would probably be rock salt. 5, sorry, that would be rock salt. 5 would be rock salt for me. Those are my 5.
Nice.
Just reading the chat, it's really good. Rock salt's a great choice, though. It's a staple.
Yeah.
You should see how many kilos of salt I got. I buy my salt by the kilo. So I've got a couple of kilo bags of fine salt and then rock salt. I think it's the thing that I have most. I'm just looking at my kilos of salt on the shelf there. All right, what about you, beautiful Owlvine? Give us your favorites. Give it your witchy favorites.
I managed to grab a few things while Alex was talking.
Whoop.
So incense is one of my first ones. I love things burning. Just any incense. This is bewitching, but it doesn't have to be this. I love scent and smoke, and I like incense sticks because they don't give off too much smoke either. Because I've got a smoke alarm right outside my witchcraft room here, which is really annoying because it wasn't here when we moved in, and this guy came a little while ago and installed it, and I was like, damn it, I don't want a fire alarm right here. Do you have any idea how much I burn in here? Anyway, so incense is one. Definitely bones are another thing. So I have a crow's foot. Can you see crow's foot?
Beautiful.
I love this. And this is one that I actually was gifted from Mama Earth. So one that I harvested, I suppose, myself. So I really like that. And then I have this bone. This is one that I found. We just went to this camping ground thing. And I'm pretty sure it was just someone's lunch. I don't think it was a wild animal thing. I don't know. Sean's maybe it's a kangaroo bone, but I don't think so. I think it was just someone's yeah. But when I saw it, I just, you feel that call sometimes, and it's just it has a halo of light around it or something, and it's ah. So I was like, yep, that's for me. And every time I hold this, it vibrates with energy for me. And I suppose I've used it as a bit of almost like a wand implement tool thing, and as kind of a staff. It's got a really sharp point on the end, but yeah, for me, it's more of like an energetic tool that I hold. So that one. And then I hope this is okay that I share this. I think it should be, but I have a blend here. This is actually called the Power of Three, which is super cool because I do that with Noah Tempestari and Keldon, our little 3 chat. But it's a blend that Crimson Fire has created, and I only got this the other day, and holy shit! Like, I don't know what's in here. There's juniper berries in here. I can see that, and I don't know what else. But oh my God, it has like this really earthy smell. So I suppose it's another scent thing. Scents are really big, and it burns so beautifully as well. Like other blends that I've tried don't burn so well, but this just has this beautiful clear smoke. I don't know. It's amazing. And then the last thing is probably crystals. I love crystals and rocks as well, but my favorite one would probably be this clear quartz. Yeah, I was looking around. I was going to say amethyst, my amethyst point, but I'm like, in terms of like actual like spell work stuff, I would say this guy. So those are my 5 things.
Woo! Excellent 5 things. Excellent 5 things. Oh, I had some ideas and I changed my mind and I changed my mind again. And basically, I've got my laptop sitting on top of my reading table, which is insane. It looks weird because it's like this ultra new thing and amongst all this dead stuff. Like a lot of dead things, and I'm just like, this is a really unique. You know what? I'm gonna take a photo of it so y'all see,
Yeah.
and then I'll put it on Insta.
Bye.
You're totally in there. Love it. All right. Well, mine. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna say tarot cards. Obviously, I'm gonna say some form of card. But tarot cards, 1 tarot and 1 oracle. I cannot no, wait. This is one thing that I never ever travel without. 1 deck that I use for every single client reading, no matter what. This is the deck. It's soul cards. So soul cards are my beautiful. Look, did you see that Mama Earth one, that Pachamama one?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Like, stop it with your bad self. So cards, specifically soul cards, if I only had to choose one, I don't think I can choose between tarot and oracle. And soul cards for me are very different. So if I could only choose one card system, then I'd have to go for soul cards because of how they make me feel. And then I'm a bit like Owlvine in my scent, but although I'm rocking a fair bit of sage and cedar right now, my all-time favorite is Palo Santo because it comes from my neck of the woods and it makes me feel like home. And that aspect of home that I feel is, it's important to reminding me that I come from a really bright culture. And so whenever I burn something that is reminiscent of the scents that I used to smell in my house, then, I get very excited and I feel very connected to tribe in that regard. But likewise with frankincense, because those motherfuckers love to burn frankincense. My God, like these hanging church-like burners through the house, and you're just like, I'm trying to have breakfast, and you just got this.
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, fuck it. I used to eat breakfast up at the top of the balcony because I'm just like, they're always smudging inside. They're always smudging. And we have to do this mass house cleaning, and then of course they come through and they're just like all this like crazy herb, with all this crazy herb. And the last time I was there, I had to go to the witch markets and buy these herbs. I'm going on a tangent now. I had to go to the witch markets in Rio, in Madureira, and buy these fresh herbs, and then I had to inquinar as ervas, and which is like to steep them and then to scrub them as though you were washing, you're washing your clothes by hand, and it breaks them down and it turns the water green. And we were doing all that stuff, and we had to burn sulfur, onion skin, and I want to say coffee, right?
Oh, shit.
And, but then of course, and this is where you get this this is where the religious and witch aspects collide. My sister's like, well, no, my Orisha is such and such and such and such, so a sulfur is not something that I can use because they don't like to use sulfur. And my mother's like, well, my Orisha is this and that, and so I can't use sulfur either. And I'm like, what are you saying, that I have to use it? Because because my Orisha also not really loving the sulfur, and they're like, yes, darling, but you haven't done all of your initiations yet, so you can go and do the sulfur work. And I'm just like, oh fuck! And I've got this big mask around my face, and I'm taking the sulfur out. My eyes are bleeding; they are burning so much. I'm like, fucking shit. This is the side of witchcraft that nobody talks about: the obligatory sulfur burning.
Oh, sulfur's gross.
Oh, it's so full on. It's so full on, but very functional at what it does, you know. A beautiful herb at what it does. And then, but you have to sweeten the space afterwards. So if you use sulfur, you have to use something that has sugar in it afterwards, like brown sugar, to sweeten the space up again. And then your house smells like burnt caramel. So everything's toffee after that, which is nice. Nice in its own regard. But in keeping with scent, I've done cards, I've done scent. I would have to say candles. I have one burning right here. So candles, doesn't matter what it is. I tend to make the majority of my candles. This is the one that I can access at the moment because my working candle, I always have a working candle. So on all of my altars throughout my house, I have one primary candle that's dedicated to a deity. And so I have my working candles, but it doesn't have to be a deity candle. It just needs to be a flame. I need to have the representations of the 4 elements. I can't witch without representations of the 4 elements, essentially. So a crystal for earth, a flame, a candle for fire, a dish of water, or even a little vial, a collected something or other, you know, for water, or a shell or something to that regard. Like that has to be it, you know. A bone, if I want to choose bone over crystal, and I always have a divination system, so it depends on what divination system I'm driving with. If I extend it out further to a 5th, then I like to have a deity representation. And I'm gonna reach for this one because this one's beautiful. Making space.
I'm excited. Oh,
this is Emanja. She is my primary Orisha. I have behind me just there, that red goddess, made by the same artist. That's Yansan. So that was my first matron. And this one was handmade for me. This was a gift that was handmade for me. And I have been to Brazil so many times. I grew up there. I've never seen an Emanja statue this beautiful there. So I am literally the winner of the lottery in that regard.
Winning.
That is like so amazing. Yeah, so she sits there, and then behind me I have Yansan. So I like statuary. And then I've got these Abbey Willow Root statues. I've got 3 of those, and then one's inside. So I like to have a bit of statuary. And if I can't have statuary, I think representations of a deity. So whether that be a stone with a specific symbol on it, or, you know, a motif. So, you know how some people work with Hecate and they like to have keys as a representation of Hecate, or a feather for crow feather, or raven feather for the Morrigan, or something to that regard. So just a representation of a deity there to bring in that element of spirit. So I'll have 4 elements, representations in whichever way I find best at the time, and then 1/5 one being, you know, spirit. So that's it. Well, guys, if you want to scroll through questions, I think we're pretty much done. We're pretty much, oh no, we've got one more, and we can just weave that into casual conversation though, because the last one was your opportunity to give just a shout out to people that you love to watch or read online. So resources for people who are interested in researching more practical witchery or low magic, and or primal aspects, heritage, anything that we've sort of discussed. If anyone comes to mind and you'd like to recommend them, otherwise we'll just answer any remaining questions and close up shop essentially.
well, I don't know. For me, some of the best articles or some of the best resources that you can find are ones that, you know, you'll spend hours and hours weeding through. I find that when I'm researching, I will weed through a lot of shit to something that is like incredibly useful to me.
Yeah.
So I don't really. Let me have a look at my favorites, because I generally favorite all of those kinds of things.
There's so many out there, isn't there? There's so many beautiful resources out there, from, you know, from books to vloggers to bloggers to, you know, podcasts. You know, there's so many great ones out there. I've got to say, I love Sarah Ann Lawless. I find her to be incredibly informative.
Yes. Yeah, I really like her. I really love too.
Yeah, so Sarah Ann Lawless, I think she used to go by the moniker of the Witch of Forest Grove, and then she moved. But she's a phenomenal artist, and she's really interested in flying ointments and unguents and creations of a herbal variety, and she's very much into traditional witchcraft, and like she has a footing in, say, Robert Cochrane, so traditional witchcraft in that setting. Yes, Chris Ashburn says that she loves Sarah Ann, and she comes out with some great stuff. She's got her website, she's got written resources through Scarlet Imprint, she's got blogs, she's got podcasts as well, and she's quite a clever person.
She is. She's out there. I quite like Joey Morris's blog as well. I feel like it has that feel to it too. So I really enjoy her blog. I love on YouTube, she doesn't make videos anymore, but she's got them all up still for everyone to watch, is Child of Bones. She is from New Zealand, and she is freaking amazing. And her stuff, like, she is the one that helped me connect with Baba Yaga and this kind of more primal energy. So she is one I would definitely 100% recommend. She's got a lot of videos that are really, really good.
That's exciting. I'll have to check her out. I think you mentioned her in your recent witchy shout out videos. Is that the same one?
Yeah, same one. I did. I really, really like her. I'm hoping she comes back, because she's taken big gaps before. So I'm hoping that will be a thing. Yeah, but she's awesome. I don't know about
That's exciting. And yeah, Joey Morris, she just does it, doesn't she? She doesn't fuck around. She just does it. Yeah. She's consistent. She puts out videos. She's passionate. She's very unique about her approach. I loved her Rune and Ogham series, where she's just like, this is me exploring the runes. And I'm like, well, fuck me. I don't explore the runes like that. Why don't I have that now? Yeah. Like, way to make me feel inadequate. And that's just me projecting on myself. No, but she's absolutely amazing. She's so intuitive. She's got this beautiful poetry and this beautiful voice, and she's got that lovely English accent where she's like, hey guys, it's Joey. And I'm like, sing me a lullaby.
I'll often put Joey on, like, in the background, like, while I'm doing things. I'm just listening to her speak. She speaks so beautifully, and the way that she articulates things, and, you know, that sense of poetry as well. I love her. So I'll often put her on in the background, because her videos are quite long, which I love. So I can listen to her talk for a long things, and just take it all in and what she's saying. And she asks, you know, a lot of questions that get me thinking and being like, oh yeah, actually, yeah. You know, she's great. She is really great. She's, consistent. Love that.
I love her. Yeah, she's really she's fabulous. And I just love her energy. And it pisses me off that she gets such a hard time, because you always see that she's like, oh my God, this person. I'm like, you must be a magnet for it. Like, your awesomeness is obviously attracting this, like, to you in some regard. Like, what's going on there? Because she's absolutely fabulous. And you can Google anything, and on YouTube, if you Google something on YouTube regarding witchcraft, you will find one of her videos in that.
Oh, yeah.
That chat stream. Likewise, the Sea Priestess. Sea Priestess. You want to have a casual conversation with a little bit of fun and your usual namaste? Like, no one does a namaste like
I know.
Annika. I know.
She's like nobody's business.
I know, she namastays, and she, you know, and it suits her. It does not suit me. It does not suit me. But she's fabulous, and the one thing that I love about her is that she instigates all of these challenges that go for a whole year. Like, she did the pagan the YouTube Pagan Challenge last year, which got so many people interacting in the pagan community and sharing their stories. She created 52 questions for 52 weeks. That was brilliant. She's got one going on now. She's got a parallel one. So she's got another question answering one and a Book of Shadows one, which now gets to, you get to engage with the arty side of witchcraft by seeing so many people sharing aspects of their, of their custom, Book of Shadows essentially. And so that's really beautiful. So you can find a ton of resources on her website on her channel and her blog as well. And, she's fabulous. She's lovely. Anyone else? Are we leaving anyone else out?
Oh, so many. I'm trying to think who has that kind of energy. Who's great actually for all things concerning low magic is the Lady Grave Dancer, which I'm sure everyone watches her anyway.
I was just about to Tequila because she's great for all of that stuff.
Yeah, she's been around for a really long time as well. She's got some great resources online right there for you to see. It's no fancy schmanciness. She's just practical magic, that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A good dose of low magic. I like it. Oh, someone's saying here, Molly, from Her Story.
Her Speak.
Her Speak.
I love
Her Speak.
She's another one that I just love her voice.
It's her voice, right? It's her voice.
Oh my God. And I love the way that she just giggles. Like she'll say something and then she'll just have like a little laugh. I think
it's hot as hell. Like that laugh, shit.
Right? It's contagious. I find myself laughing. I'm like, look at her. She's just laughing for no reason. Like, that's awesome.
Oh, she's fabulous.
Awesome.
I love how there's something so magical about her whole persona, right? She leans into the camera like this and goes, "Hello, moon babies." And I'm like,
and then she'll go,
beautiful voice. And she's got that, languid, that dark, languid voice that just oozes out this yumminess. Beg your pardon?
She articulates and speaks very well. Very well spoken.
She does. She's very well spoken. I watched a video of hers and I thought that this was very clever, mind you. And this coincides with practical magic. And she was calling the elements, but in her environment. And she called to the graffitied pavement and she called to something else. And it was just a very unique calling of the quarters, a calling of the winds. And I thought to myself, you nailed it. In every regard, you nailed it.
Especially because she is a little bit of like an urban witch. She's she said in a few of her videos that she's in that urban environment, and you don't have the elements in their kind of I don't know what the word, natural form, I guess. Like some of us are
amounts of it,
yeah, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. It becomes a little different. You have to sort of hunt for your natural resources in a city.
Okay, like for me, I live on a farm, so I've got trees and plants, and I've got a body of water, and we've got a fire pit and all of this awesome stuff that I can use. But for some people who live in the city who don't have that stuff, it's like, oh my God, like still being able to find a way to practice without having all of these stuff so accessible to you.
That's exactly right. That's another thing, like accessibility for witchcraft. It's very, I think that the resources that we've mentioned so far can be applied in any scenario. So anyone living in a very urban style setting that doesn't have access to, say, a waterfall or a beach or anything else that we've previously referred to, because here in Australia we're very blessed with backyards and an abundance of nature. That's one thing that we get that that is easy to access. Australia places great emphasis on their natural resources and their environment. They could place more. They could place more energy in that. Just saying. But, we're very lucky to have a very clean street. Just saying. We've got clean streets. We've got access to you know, to nice beaches. We've got access to nice national parks that you can camp in, and they're relatively well kept depending on what state you're in. We have really good ones up here in Queensland, so you know, we can access nature a lot. But for those who can't, then there's a way. For those who live in massive metropolitan built up areas, completely urbanized environments, then you're going to be privy to a much more individual, unique type of environment and setting. But there's still a way to call spirit through there. There's still a way to, you know, to call the elements in that scenario. And it's really about really ingraining in your environment, in your geographical location, and pulling what you can from that, and not trying to replicate things that you do read in external resources like books, vlogs, etc. So work with what you've got in that regard, especially in keeping with your geographical location, because that defines a lot of how your magic will flow, essentially. So that's a beautiful thing. So learning to work with concrete in built-up areas, learning to work with electricity lines if you're in very tall buildings, which I've had to do in my life once or twice, very brief circumstances. But you can actually work with metal that runs through a complex that is tiered. So if you're on the 6th, 7th, 8th story of something, you can actually learn to ground energy through the copper wires or through the electrical wires, and you know, using the structure of the concrete and, you know, to ground and things of that nature. So you just have to look at it in a very different setting. But all resources mentioned have been geared towards that. So that's exciting. Anyone want to add anything before we go?
I think we covered so much today.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's very functional.
It's been a very fabulously functional chat.
It flowed well.
Practical too.
And practical. It's very practical. We were very mature from start to finish. It was fabulous. All right, guys. Well, the witchy mummy. The witchy mummy.
Oh, yeah, she's fabulous. Yeah.
The witchy mummy is another resource. Jennifer Hodgson has just mentioned the witchy mummy, and so that's Feather. That's Feather. She used to be Feather Garden Bell on YouTube, but now she's the witchy mummy, and she has quite a few resources. She's very much into a little bit of hoodoo. She loves her herb work. She has an Etsy store. It's very hands-on crafty, that one. So yes, add her to that list of recommendations because she's fabulous. All right, folks, without further ado, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you, Alex, for hanging out. Thank you, Owlvine, for hanging out. You've added so much charm and charisma to this experience, and thank you to everyone who has stuck with us and watched and conversed, and we tried to answer all your questions. So just know that we do our best. There's a lot of chat that comes through, and we have a few technical difficulties from behind the scenes, so we do our best. In that regard, I will see you guys later, beautiful people.
Bye.